everybody, it's Romania Black, and we're on episode 17 of Berserk. And apparently there's an eclipse about to happen. What? An eclipse is about to happen. There's going to be demons descending, supposedly. The plot, just when you think that Griffith's won the battle, he's won the war, he's going to become king, Zod Ex Machina shows up and is like, hey, Guts, I'm going to throw you a lifeline. Also, not going to tell you, but there's about to be this crazy event happen, so you might need this sword. I'm very curious. I'm very curious about a lot of things with the rest of the series. Obviously, there's so much more manga to go because I don't have any expectations that all of my questions are going to be answered in the anime because there's literally like 42 volumes of manga to get through. So I'm not expecting that. However, I do think that we should hopefully get answers to, is Griffith going to be... I fully expect that the series is going to circle back around to season 1's content. That has always been my thought, that we're going to end episode 25 with where we started out at, or at least the events right before we see Guts for the first time getting the sword reforged. I would assume that, but, the series may decide not to do that. They may decide, you'll have to read the manga to get full circle back to where we are. But I do feel like Griffith is going to either become king in this season, or he's at least going to get to where he can become king. The big question now is, supposedly Guts is leaving. Supposedly Guts has fulfilled his mission. He's got Casca and Griffith together. He's helped them win the war. He's like, okay, I can leave now and go find my purpose. That's what it seems to be. Now, is Griffith going to let Guts go? That's the big question. Is Griffith gonna let Guts leave? I don't know. I don't know. I'm very curious about this. Like, how's that gonna work? And what's gonna happen with this whole clan of the Queen and Faust and the others that don't support Griffith? How is that gonna go about? We talked last episode about Corcus and how he seems like he's the type to cut and run. What's that going to be like? And this whole eclipse and demons. What part does that have to play? Does Griffith know about it? Do any of these characters know about it? Does only Zod and the demons know about it? That's our big question. So I don't know. I'm going in the dark at this point. The last couple episodes, it was like, okay, we're going to have this battle. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. Now it's like, other than Griffith trying to become king and the Queen and her men trying to poison him, I have no clue what's going to happen. And that's a fun place to be from a reactor standpoint, but I'm also a bit nervous. So what can we do? What can we do? But yeah, I'm really excited, y'all. I'm very curious to see what happens this episode. This series has not missed yet, so whatever happens, it's going to be a damn good time. I can tell y'all that, so... But in any case, we're not going to waste any more time. We're going to find out, y'all, and see for ourselves. So we're going to see episode 17 of Berserk, and we're going to check that out here in 3, 2, 1, and let's see this sweet old gnarly hand. I love this series so much. Oh my god, I love this series so freaking much. And I would shout it off a mountain, shout it to the rooftops. Oh my god. It's just, oh god, it's satisfying. It's so satisfying. So this episode, I keep saying that these episodes are my favorite. I don't know how I'm going to rank this. I don't know how you rank these episodes. I mean, from a certain point on, it just gets, from episode 2 and episode 1 might be my lowest ranked episodes, because then it just gets better and better after that. But, oh my god. So yeah, we need to talk about this. Before we dive into this set of episodes, before I get my markers out for Whiteboard Coon, I do have a couple comments that have built up that I want to talk about that are from way back in like episode 13. So humor me, because these are from a while back. Moomin Commit noted that the arrow that was in Guts' hand in episode 13 is a really good foreshadowing to him losing his hand in episode 1. Because we know in episode 1 he's lost a hand. It's like a cannon now. So the arrow in his hand, it's the same hand. That could be a cool bit of foreshadowing. I'm going to be interested to see in the manga The only thing I know about the manga is it does not start in the same place that the anime does. So my guess is it does not start with the episode that gets us being like, oh, I wonder how we got to that point. That's the only thing I know. I don't want to know anything else. So it's going to be interesting to read the manga and see all the little bits of foreshadowing that will lead up to eventually what we find out at the end of this season. That'll be interesting. Also, Samson and Adon are based on Japanese video games characters, Cho and Nikki. They're based off two brothers from that game. And I was like, well, that's kind of cool that you get some more references with the series from there. And then Amir Ahmed had some really cool comments talking about how the mangaka died in 2021 at the age of 54. I remember when that happened. It was actually what put Berserk on my radar was back in 2021. I remember when the mangaka died. There were so many people that were just supporting him and supporting like with artwork and everything. And I don't remember any of the artwork because I was like, I don't know the series, I don't know the characters. But I remember it was a thing. The one thing that does stand out is that the mangaka Horikoshi, who does My Hero Academia, they were doing a character arc at the time that the main character kind of resembled, I guess, Guts in a way, the way that they were drawn. And I was like, oh, that style is so cool. And then Horikoshi came out and said they were inspired by Miura in that moment. And I was like, that's so badass. So yeah, I like that a lot. But apparently their best friend Koji Mori is finishing the series for him. And apparently Miura told Koji Mori like everything, like told them the story from start to finish so that they know exactly what happens. I love when stuff like that happens. I mean, I don't like the mangaka past, obviously, but I like when they're able to share that with others. Alan Rickman, who is the actor that played Severus Snape in the Harry Potter movies, was told their role in that story from beginning to end before anyone else knew about it. And I was like, how dare you, sir, as an actor, so he could get in character better. So when stuff like that happens, I think it's really cool. So I'm glad that they're finishing the series. But the episode 12 preview, they've been sharing previews for all the episodes. And the episode 12 preview was, to wield a sword is to be alive. Dreams are spun and heaved with desire, but still something pure is lost. And I love that a lot because what to me it symbolizes is the idea that everyone has hopes and dreams, but those hopes and dreams can easily become ambition, and that ambition can easily cause you to betray other people, to harm other people, to kill other people, and to basically turn something that was pure and innocent, like just a vision you had, into something that's twisted and toxic and possibly dangerous. So I like that a lot. Again, Isayama, who wrote Attack on Titan, has clearly watched this series and taken some pages from the books. And I'll probably use this quote and actually talk about it in the Attack on Titan volume that I'm about to read, which I'm recording this a little bit ahead. So go see Attack on Titan volume 28 and I'll talk about this line. But thank you, Mir Almond. I like that when I get to the manga, I will have the knowledge that it's not going to be completed yet. It will still have a ways to go. But with that being said, we need to talk about this episode. It feels like a red wedding is about to go down. And I will tell you why. Because this series has a wonderful habit of getting you to think something's going to happen, and then they completely do a bait and switch on you, right? They do a big old bait and switch. And so, and again, we kind of book in the episode. We start out with Guts seemingly in a place of despair because he's about to lose to Boscone, and then Zod Ex Machina comes in, gives him the sword, and he's okay. And then we bookend with Guts and Griffith at the beginning of the episode, and we bookend him. We'll talk about that damn smile. Oh my god. Oh my god. I could sing, right? This episode was amazing, and I had so much I wanted to talk about it, but there just wasn't time. So here we are now. So we're gonna get past this recap. We know that Zod gave him the sword. They don't mention the Great Eclipse or the demons. Nobody talks about it. It's fine. We won't have to worry about it now. It'll come up later, I'm sure. We'll worry about it then. So, moment of glory. This opening scene where there's just the people everywhere, the rose petals. It's just this big festival. They've won the war. It's just this big festival and everyone's so happy. It's like the most cheerful these people have been the entire time, this whole series. And it's a great scene. I absolutely love it. I love the way that it's done, the choreography of it, the cinematography, everything. Griffith is very solemn throughout this entire episode. Griffith was interesting. Griffith, I'm a little bit concerned for Charlotte's sake. Because let's talk about these characters. Well, Griffith, the only time that Griffith smiles is at the end with Guts. That's it. These co-conspirators that I have theories about, I'm like, the only time Griffith shows any positive emotion is at the end when he looks at Guts like, are we about to fucking murder this place? I think we are! Like, that's exactly what it felt like. And so Griffith, this entire time during the parade, he was solemn. I think that he knows that there is a huge target on his back. I think he is very aware that there is a big-ass target on his back, and he's like, they're going to be after me because now that we've won this war, I am going to be sitting pretty. And I think Griffith is intelligent enough to know how the hierarchy works. They're going to be officially the White Hawk Knights, right? The White Hawk Knights and our noblemen. And that's all of his men, the band of the Hawk. I mean, Griffith he does smile in that moment when they all get like their knighthood announced that it's going to happen, because for Griffith, he's like, oh good, all of my men that worked hard to help me get to this place, they're going to get rewarded. Good deal. It also makes sense why he wouldn't want any of them involved in whatever him and Guts are doing. Here's the thing. Let's break down this whole plot. I guess we'll talk about it as we go. I think that the plan is that Griffith is going to poison the king. I think he's going to poison the king. The question is, if he were going to poison the king, why not wait until after they're officially knighted, until everything's official? Why not wait until that moment? Unless he had no choice because he knew they were going to try to poison him at the ceremony. So maybe he didn't have a choice, right? I feel like he's going to poison the king, and the king is going to either going to knight them as he's dying, or we're going to get metrosexual knight in here. We're going to get Metro Knight in here. The Metro Bros are going to demand the king's will upheld. Because what I could see happening, I could see the fact that Griffith has been put into a corner. He was going to poison, get rid of the king eventually, but then he found out that Foss and the queen were going to try to poison him, and he's like, well, shit, I have no time to do this now, so I've got to go into action immediately. But he's like, it would have been nice if we could have waited a couple days till we were officially knighted and made nobles, but since that can't be the case, I think what Griffith is banking on is his relationship with the metrosexual knights, the two guys there, and hoping that since they're such devout followers of Griffith at this point, that they're going to be like, well, now wait a minute, the king said this was going to be done, so we have to uphold the king's promise to these men because he said it in front of all these people. That's the thing too. Griffith wanted him to say it in front of all these people because it's like, you have all these witnesses, so if anybody questions it, the people can be like, well, the king said you were going to get knighted, so how can you go back on your word? You know, I feel like that's going to be the case. My question is if the king is not poisoned, or if he's not poisoned, is it going to be one of those situations where is the king, the queen, and Charlotte gonna get massacred by Guts? Is Guts our assassin? And does Griffith, if that's the case, does Griffith know that Guts will leave after this? Because it could very well be, it could be that Guts went up to Griffith and was like, what we don't know is what happened in between the end of last episode and now, right? So it could very well, him and Griffith have met in his chamber somewhere to talk out what's about to happen. They've met prior to all of this by themselves, and they've hashed this out. They've met in Griffith's personal study. Griffith's like lounging around with his shirt unbuttoned, and Guts is like shirtless, and they're just staring homoerotically at each other, and then they just hash out what the plan is. But I feel like Guts could have gone to Griffith and been like, hey, now that you've secured everything, I'm seeing it through, but I'm going to leave after this. And Griffith was like, oh, I respect you leaving, but before you go, could you help a man out? Could you do me a solid and become a wanted murderer? And Guts is probably be like, sure, because I feel like what happened was maybe they met up and Griffith was like, look, I need your help before you go. I need you to help secure my place as king. And Guts is like, sure, what do you want me to do? And he's like, well, we're going to kill the royal family. And Guts is like, even Charlotte? And Griffith is like, Or if it's not Charlotte, I feel like it's going to be the king and the queen. And then Charlotte will be left all by her lonesome. And Griffith's going to swoop in and be like, oh no, your parents died a tragic, mysterious death. How about I marry you and secure the family line? And the people will be like, oh my God, royal wedding. And the noblemen will be like, what the hell? And the metrosexual knights will be like, well, this would be what the king wanted. And then all will be on a path towards Griffith becoming king. I don't know. I will be very sad if they decide to kill Charlotte because she's been like a total innocent throughout this entire thing. It's going to be really sad and disturbing if they kill Charlotte and Griffith's just standing over her like, YOLO, But I feel like there is a somberness as he's walking through the crowd here. Like he knows that this big fanfare, he knows that all this celebration is going to turn into a mass funeral in 2 days. he's like, spare your rose petals now. You're going to need them in 2 days when you're mourning the king and queen. I'm just saying. But the question is, I don't think Guts would have a problem with going on the run and being a wanted murderer. I don't think he'd care at all. It's Guts. And if he could do it for Griffith, then of course he's going to do it. I'm interested because a part of me would think that Griffith would not want Guts to go through that. But then another part of me is like, nah, Griffith's agenda is to become king no matter what. And if Guts is willing to help him, I don't think that Griffith drank the poison. He dropped the chalice, it broke, and there was still wine left in the chalice. I think that Griffith pretended to drink because we never actually saw any liquid leave and enter his mouth. I think he pretended to drink and then dropped it and fell to the ground. I think so. And I say that because I feel like that was the signal. He looked at Guts and was like, best buddy, best pal, you ready to do this? And he's like, ready, Bo. And then they went into action and this was part of it. I think it's part of their plan for him to pass out, be the innocent victim. Oh, woe is me. And then while this goes on, Griffith was none the wiser. Who knew? And then I do hope they spare Charlotte, but I'm a little worried if they do because bless her heart, she's going to lose her parents and go through this massacre all in a day if that's the case. I don't know. But Griffith just doesn't seem pleased at all about this parade, probably because he knows what's to come. And he doesn't even acknowledge Charlotte. I thought that was weird when she tries to get his attention. They say that he couldn't hear because of the crowd, but I'm like, under any other circumstance, Griffith would have been able to know it was her. But I think he's deliberately avoiding her because he doesn't want... I feel like it's Griffith's way of staying distanced from what's about to happen, in that I don't want to acknowledge you, Charlotte, in this moment because I'm literally about to kill your family. So I don't want to add that and take advantage of this moment. But Judo will. Judo's like, oh wow, look at all these people. He's like, I've never seen all these people in the kingdom before in Old Wyndham. The Wyndham Rewards plan is doing wonders for the kingdom. There are people like all over this building in very dangerous ways. And the old auntie in me is like, get down off of that balcony, son. You're going to fall to your death. But yeah, they're all so happy to see him. And then of course, Corcus is such a showboat, right? So we put Corcus down here. And see, Judo, we're going to put Judo here and talk about him. Corcus is very much the showboat. He is reveling in the spoils, which I think is going to have a big impact in this whole thing, because if this all goes down next episode like I think it's going to go down, then there's probably going to be a chance that there's going to be some debate over whether to make them knights or not. If the king dies, they're going to be like, do we uphold the king's word or not? And I feel like Corcus is going to freak out, because Corcus reminds me of Jean from Attack on Titan a lot, only if Jean was problematic. No, if Jean actually lived up to where his character started in the series, I feel like he'd be a lot like Corcus. But I feel like Corcus is going to get mad if he finds out that Guts and Griffith planned this. Corcus is going to be pissed because Corcus like finally gets this position that he seems to have wanted secured. He gets the dames, he gets the recognition, he gets the status, and then it's all nearly thrown away because Guts was following Griffith's agenda. I could see Corcus getting mad about that if he finds out, but we'll see. Corcus was such a goofball this episode. He was ridiculous. I'm sorry though. He's like all nodding and enjoying it. They throw the bouquets and Rickard gets clocked in the head with a bouquet of flowers. What? Rickard's like, I don't want to touch Farrah and Fauna. No. Like he gets whacked in the head with some flowers. It's actually kind of funny. I'm like, what? And he's like, and everybody's like, all the little kids running up next to Pippin being like, Pippin! Like all the little children. It's actually really cute. So yeah, Rickard is pelted by flowers. And he seems very uncomfortable around the women folk. Seems very uncomfortable around him. He's like, I'm just a kid, leave me alone. Quit calling me cute. Ew, stop. Like he's been in battle. Rickard doesn't need the cutesy treatment, right? I like that Pippin is kind of like this big teddy bear throughout this entire episode. He doesn't say a word. The kids just chase after him. The women are like, oh, who's this muscular man? And he's just like, oh, ladies, I need you to leave me alone. I said in the reaction, he's like asexual. He wants nothing to do with any of them. He's like, ladies, I am aromantic. No. And then Casca. I love that the girls and everybody's yelling for Casca, and Casca is not having a bisexual awakening in this episode. She's like, oh God, no, I don't know how to react to any of this. Again, Guts and Casca. Oh my God. So I feel like Guts is a co-conspirator with old Griffith here. But then we have Casca. And Casca is just not about the fan service treatment. She's not about the crowds cheering after her. She's not about the men gagging over her at the ball. She's just like, her and Guts have so much in common. And I wanted to ship them so hard this episode. This series gives you, it literally, I know y'all haven't probably watched it, Yona of the Dawn, but you need to watch Yona of the Dawn. Because the Suwon Hawk, I wanted to call Guts Hawk at one moment because he literally is acting like Hawk. I was like, oh my God, stop. Like, and Casca and Suwon are kind of, they're not exactly like, or Suwon and Yona are not exactly like Casca and Griffith, but they're similar. But Hawk and Guts have a lot in common. A lot in common. Just saying. The Thunder Beast and Guts have quite a bit in common, interestingly enough. And the mangakas were friends, so of course. But they just have so much in common. And there are moments where I want to ship Guts and Griffith so badly, and it's like so obvious. But then there are moments like this episode where I was like, girl, he could not be more obvious. And Guts doesn't even realize how obvious he is. It's just, oh my God. But yeah, Casca has no clue how to deal. And then Guts, I think it's interesting that Guts keeps a fair distance from Griffith. And I feel like that is intentional. I feel like Griffith and Guts are very separate in this moment in the parade because, again, we don't want to connect Griffith to Guts because if Guts is about to be an assassin in this massacre, we don't want anybody watching, and the whole kingdom is watching, we don't want anybody to be like, oh, well, that guy and Griffith were really super close, and they were probably conspiring together. Even though they all, know that he's the raid commander, and they could probably put two and two together, they're like, why aren't you celebrating? And at the time, before you realize that Griffith and Guts have probably conspired together about this whole event, he's looking down because he knows that he's leaving. And again, I feel like there's been time passed between the parade and the ball. There has been time between the parade. There was the parade, this mystery time, and then the ball. And at some point, these two got together, and I feel like Guts told Griffith, he's like, I'm going. And Griffith's like, can you do one more thing before you go? Before you're going to leave forever, can you help me out? And Guts was like, yes. He owes him that much, right? He's like, I'm okay. And he's like, could anyone have dreamt this 3 years ago? Only Griffith could have done this. He's like, I will have my own kingdom. Yeah, so we go back to Griffith talking about having his dream of his own kingdom. And Guts was like, I'm going to help him have that dream. Also, I'm just going to say, we haven't seen the Behelit in a while, and Griffith's got that around his neck. Good for him. I'm just going to say, Guts could have imagined him like anything, but he imagined him nude. Just like that moment where he told him that, you know, I'm just saying. Just saying. And Griffith and Guts kind of smiles at that. It's amazing. So meanwhile, Charlotte looks great in this episode. Charlotte looks so beautiful. She looks the best she's ever looked. And it's very tragic because she's either about to die or she's going to lose like her whole family in the next episode. I have a feeling. I have a feeling it's going to happen. But she looks so pretty there. And she like couldn't decide on what to wear. And she gets there and she has bows all up in her hair. And she waves at him and calls him out. And he just goes right by. Mm-hmm. Now, you can look at this either two ways. One, Griffith, because I think Griffith knew that he knows the layout of the castle. He knows where her chambers are. He knows when he walks by during that parade that he was going to go by her and see her. So he knew exactly where to look. If he wanted her attention to be had, he would have looked right at her. But I think he ignored her for one of two reasons. One, he knows shit's about to go down at this ball. He doesn't want to feel guilty for having thrown her in the midst of this, especially if she ends up dying from it. One. Or two, which is worse. Two, he's done using her. He used her to get chummy with the king. He used her to get close to the king. He used her to serve a purpose, to serve an end. And now that he's about to become king, he has no use for her anymore. It could be a combination of both. But there was just a coldness about him just ignoring her that I was like, oh, he's done with her. Like, he's used her for her purpose, and now she's done. I don't know. It could be. It could not be. We'll have to see next episode, but it's very apparent. And then we have Foss and this queen. Oh my god. The queen could not look more villainous than in her cobra snake ensemble. Like, she even has the sleeves look like scales. She looks like the Fief Lord is who she looks like from the first episode. She looks like him. But she has the long train and everything. The pink fan she has looks like a snake tongue. Like, she oozes villainy in this scene. And then we get to her at the ball and she's like, oh, who, me? And it's like, you trollop. But anyway, so they're like, did you make the arrangements? And he's like, consider it done. We should hold a feast to celebrate after everything has fallen into place. A feast held to express our regrets over his death. Yes. And they're going to meet his end in a bird cage of stone walls. It will happen on this day, the most notable day in his entire life. Okay, so I guess this is within the same day, but they were all getting ready. So I'm sure maybe, oh my god, if we get a shot of Griffith calling Guts up into his chamber to help him put on a suit, I will lose it. I will freaking lose it, y'all. I'm not even joking. But this is happening in a day. And so the queen and Foss and them are like, oh, well, we'll be merciful. And we'll kill him on this day when he's won the battle. The day is saved. Everything will be fine. And we'll just do him this kindness, right? Or so it seems to be. But then they get this message, right? That they're like, a letter was addressed to you, sir. And he's like, who's it from? And he says, I don't know, but a lady from the court entrusted this to me. And so he opens it up to look at it in front of everybody. My theory is that it's from Griffith. My theory is it's from Griffith, and Griffith made him change the plans. My theory is he opens up the note, and it's like, one, if you tell anybody about this, I'll freaking kill you now. Two, I'm going to murder everybody. So if you want to live to see another day and not be murdered like everyone else, you're going to do exactly like I tell you to. I have a feeling that it was just a letter along the lines of, I know what you did last summer. I know what you're planning. I know what your game is. I figured it out already. And you're either going to help me achieve my goal or I'm going to kill you along with everyone else. And because Foss is a coward and he fears Griffith, he feared him that day that he met him in the hallway and Griffith was like, I got you. I feel like Foss is like, oh shit, I'm going to change my plan. That's why he doesn't say anything in the ballroom. They're like, oh, you look pale. Are you okay? And he's like, because he knows shit's about to go down. The question is, did he actually fall through with what the Queen's plans were? Or did he change his game because of Griffith and how, like, I think this letter's from him? Right? I feel like that is the case because he gets freaked out. And he's like, oh, nothing's the matter. And then he's like, I gotta go. Bye. And she looks at him like very suspicious. So the question's going to be, did she realize that something was up too? Has she onto him? Like, I wonder if she's suspicious in that moment. And we see Foss running away, like storming away. And he's saying, how did this happen? The bastard. And that's it. So I feel like Griffith knows exactly what he's doing. And Casca screaming in despair at the end is just a fake out. A red herring for us, the audience. The end of a chapter, whatever. That shot of Griffith and the horse is just beautiful, though, with all the roses and everything. It's great. So we have this Phantom of the Opera-esque ball. Freaking love it. Love all the 90s. The 90s puffety sleeves, everything. But I'm sorry. Griffith and Guts' outfits. Griffith's outfit is interesting because it's all purples and lavenders, which is, you know, purple is, if you use color theory and symbolism, purple's a sign of royalty, it's a sign of uniqueness. It's also poison. Purple's also connected to toxicity and poison, so funny that. But he's got all the gold accents, the frills, everything. He looks like an owl. Griffith looks like an owl, which is fair, right? He's got his hair all coiffed. It looks like little feathers leaning off him. Pippin has the orange cloak on and everything. Guts looks, again, like a cross between Adam from Beauty and the Beast, the prince, and Gaston. He looks freaking good. Guts cleans up. He's got them big, stomping, big dick energy boots on. And I'm just like, Guts is just give him all the fan service. So I do like that Judo has like a little bit of pseudo commentary here where everybody's clapping for them entering. And we see Judo saying, oh, well, the heavy taxes on the commoners were spent on this place. I like Judo. Judo's over here making commentary. He is observing and doing commentary. Because he notices, he's like, man, all this lavish wealth and your common people are struggling to survive. I'm just going to call out the hypocrisy of the system. But then he's the one that notices Guts and Casca going outside later on. So Judo's been keeping his eye out for Guts and Casca, and I think he knows something's going on. I think Judo suspects that there's something between Guts and Casca, even though both of them are absolutely oblivious. I think Judo's onto it because Judo was noticing her with the dust, going after Guts to talk to him. Judo knows that something's amiss. He's no slouch, right? Meanwhile, you know, Judo's making this commentary about how tragic this system is and how everybody's, you know, like people outside are suffering while these people lavish in luxury. Corcus is just like, oh my God, I get all the bitches. Like, cause Corcus is just having a wing ding of a time and having the best time ever. And Rickard just seems embarrassed, like, oh, I don't deserve to be here. This is, I like Rickard's outfit with the cream color over the green. And then Corcus's outfit is like extravagant in the most over the top and ridiculous ways. It fits. It makes him almost look like Frollo from Hunchback of Notre Dame, honestly. But I like that Rickard's like, I'm really nervous. This is embarrassing. Like, we're just commoners. Why are we being strutted around? And Corcus is like, we've come this far. We deserve this. We are owed this. That's why I feel like Corcus is one to be scared of, because he feels like he's owed this. And he's somebody that I fear if things go awry, he's gonna be one to freak out, right? Because it's gonna mess with everything. And then Rickard's like, I can't believe I'm standing in this place that seems like a fairy tale. And he's like, if I hadn't met the Band of the Hawk and Griffith, I would have never imagined this sight, not even in a dream. So yeah, he's just like, Rickard's like, me surrounded by nobles in a huge castle. What's interesting is that Guts stays very close to Griffith in this moment, almost like we got to get to the center stage. We've got to make it to the stage. What's surprising about all this is that Guts seems so himbo-ish and so unassuming. And Guts doesn't seem, I mean, on the onset, I mean, to be honest, I didn't think Guts would be able to hold in a secret, like if him and Griffith are planning this wide scale attack. I didn't think Guts would be able to hold it in or comprehend it. And I don't mean to sound like I'm saying Guts is dumb, but he comes across as so simple. And then you realize, no, he actually knows quite a bit. He just, doesn't process it the same way, or he doesn't like get all caught up in the extravaganceness of it. He's just here for the bare bones meaning. And him just looking at Griffith, being like, okay, what are we going to do? And then the poor Griffith and the other guys, they're just surrounded by all these girls. And Griffith's like, 99 problems and a bitch ain't one. Get out. Come on. No. And I like that Pippin and Corcus and Rickard and Judo are all standing there like, what the heck we do? And then he's like, oh, I don't want to bore you ladies. And of course, Corcus is only worried about getting the girls too. And then they show up and he's like, oh, well, who, me? Corcus is so sleazy. So sleazy. And poor Rickard and Pippin don't exactly know what to do. Guts doesn't know what to do. Guts is like, they're like, are you and Griffith close? And he's like, yes, we are, bitches. Get out of the way. You're not going to use him to get close to you. I love that he's just like, I gotta go. Bye. And Rickard's like, no fair. You get to leave. We don't get to see Judo's reaction to the women, although he's the one that notices Guts and Casca running off. But yeah, of course, the noblemen are like, they probably feel like they're undeserving of all the praise. And then we have our metrosexual knights. I love them. I love the one guy here, the one knight. He's like got the perfect hair, the perfect manscaped beard, has the red robes on. He just got done making out with the blonde in a corner. They're so good, but they're also the most well kept and handsome knights. So I'm like, I'm on to you, boys. I'm on to you. But yeah, he's like, they have to recognize the Band of the Hawk's true strength. So they have to recognize whether they're nobility or not. Because 100 years later, they have fulfilled our kingdom's long cherished wish. Yeah, so the rub of it is that the nobility is pissed because these are commoners, but they can't deny the fact that these commoners did help them secure a victory they've worked on for 100 years. Imagine that. So yeah, and they're like, as if it were nothing. Sir Raven, it was wise that you spoke up for him earlier, Sir Raven. You have foresight, and I'll follow your example. Okay, Raven is our metrosexual knight. Raven is Mr. Manscape. Raven is a follower of Griffith. And I don't think that's gone unnoticed. I think Griffith knows he's got somebody fighting in his corner if push comes to shove. And since Raven's been proven right by his assumption about Griffith, then this other blonde knight is going to be like, well, I'll follow your example. And it's like, yes, it's a domino effect, right? And I think that's why Griffith's going to pass out, because he doesn't need to be awake during all of this, because that'll make him seem innocent, right? Like, oh, what did I miss, He's like, we'll need to be a little, what does he say there? He says, I'm going to follow your example. And Raven says, you're starting to sound like a certain minister we all know, Sir Owen. Owen and Raven. Yes, that's right. Owen and Raven are our two metrosexual knights who are in no way together, but supporters of Griffith. We'll need to all be a little like that in the future, because the war is over. It's so funny that we have this conversation about the war being over, and he's like, we are people that have used our swords all of our lives. Now we're going to have to find a way to readjust into society. And what is that going to look like? How is that going to be? That's going to be hard for some people. And we're going to have to adjust our mindsets and how we approach situations now that the war is no longer part of our lives. Right? For Guts, though, he doesn't have to worry about that, because he's going to be on the run for the rest of his life after he kills the royal family, I'm sure. Am I right? So we'll see. But yeah, he's like, I love that Raven's like, I pray for tranquility and peace and that will last for ages. I'm like, interesting that you say that. We'll see. It's a bold move, Cotton. We'll see if it works out. I do think, though, that the conversations that Raven and Owen have in this episode are ones that I've seen in series like Vinland Saga that have come up, especially Vinland Saga. The whole conversation about what do you do? What does a soldier do when there's no more war? That's central to Vinland Saga. So I definitely can see where the mangaka was influenced by Berserk. The man who brought this piece is also aware of this. So yeah, that's the question. Griffith knows that now that the war is over, there's going to be this gap, and what do we do about it? His clothes have a very French vibe to them. It's like a very French king vibe to it, which is interesting. Also, the way that they animated it, I know it's just bad animation, but the way when Griffith is standing in front of the sea of girls and he like looks off to the side, the one side of his face isn't animated well, and that's fine. But the way it looked in the episode, it looked like the Phantom of the Opera's mask. And I was like, well, that's fitting. So yeah, I was honestly waiting. I was waiting for Charlotte to come in and get Griffith's attention, but it doesn't happen. I was waiting for her to show up in the sea of girls and be like, move, bitches, he's mine, or like something to that effect. But we don't get that, so it's curious. But Raven notes that Griffith stands out too much. And they say, like, he stands out too much. He's very noticeable. And they're like, the brighter the light, the darker the shadows grow nearby. So the more Griffith stands out and the more he seems to be this beacon, the more villains are going to be drawn to try to take him out. Which is what we're seeing with the Queen and Foss's men, right? So Guts is like, I hate this. Guts is like, I can't deal. And then he looks over and sees this girl who notices him and runs over to see him. And I was like, I knew it was Casca because she's literally like the only dark-skinned woman in this entire series, you know. But she's in this big dress and Guts doesn't recognize her. He thinks he's been drugged away by this random woman. She's beautiful here. She is absolutely gorgeous. And it's like the best Casca's ever looked. And she's like, I need you to pretend to be my partner. And I'm like, what is this rom-com? What is this magic? What is this? I love this. I love that neither Casca nor Guts want to be there, but they're faking being partners together. I was like, yes, she looks gorgeous with the roses in her hair and her hair slicked back. She has the headband. I want her dress. I want that entire look. And Guts is like, oh, and he's so flabbergasted. He's like, oh, you look really pretty. Like, oh, I'm not used to seeing you look like a woman. You know, like Guts being Twitter pated in this moment for Casca it's given me life. It's like, oh my God, I cannot. Peak romance. Give me this. And she's like, this is annoying. She's like, these useless sons of noblemen must not see many female warriors. They look at me like I'm some rare animal. And then Guts looks at her like she's a rare animal. And he's like, and she's like, excuse me. Hey, what are you looking at? And he's like, I didn't know you like to wear dresses. And she's like, no. I love that she instantly like elbows him and has like the gloves and everything. Oh my God, Casca. And she drags him off. She's like, we gotta go. Because the girls are kind of giggling that he gets drug off. And Judo's like, oh, huh, He's like, I see. I like that Judo's like trying to put two and two together, being like, them together? I thought that. I feel like Judo in his head is going, I thought they both liked Griffith. Which they do. They do, but I like that Judo's like, am I missing something? Is there a threesome going on here? And I'm just not aware of it. But yeah, I love that she looks beautiful in this moment. I love it. They both look so good and the colors match them so well. I love it. He's like, I'm not interested in these kind of things. And Guts is like, me neither. I don't think Guts just sitting there like with his man spreading like his legs stuck up there. I'm like, what? And she talks about wielding a sword being more comfortable. And he's like, yeah, I agree. And he's like, what put such an idea? Do you think that you, our brave sister Casca, is wearing a flowing dress? And she's like, well, I dress like a man just because it's easier. It's not that I want to dress like a guy all the time. And then he just smiles at her. And the thing of it is, he gives her so many looks and she doesn't notice. I'm like, he is looking at her with freaking heart eyes. He is looking at her like he is ready to dance. I wish they would dance. I guess that the dance would have been too cliche. I know. If they had danced together, it would have been too shoujo. Would have been too cliche. And plus, he didn't know when the king was going to show up to set this into motion. So, of course, he didn't want to like get caught up in the moment with Casca and then lose his chance to help Griffith. But still, I was like, damn it, Guts, him looking at her the way that he does, and she doesn't see it. She's like, I shouldn't have done something I'm not used to. I make myself sick if I wear these kind of loose dresses. And then he's like, she looks up at him and says, well, how do I look? And he's like, you look good. And I'm like, she's like, all my muscles. Do I look ridiculous? And he's like, no, you look good. I'm like, girl. And she's just like, oh, really? I'm like, Guts never tells anybody this. Like, Guts treats her, I want them to be together so badly. I'm so torn because there is like an angsty BL goodness to Guts and Griffith together that has that certain level of angst that you expect. And if you know that Guts and Griffith are going to be enemies later on, as we see in episode 1, then it adds a layer to it where you're like, oh, yes, the actions, they fit together so well. But the way that it's developed in this series, Guts and Casca, I'm like, I want Guts and Casca together so badly. I want them to realize they're so good for each other. And just, But yeah, she's just like, oh, really? I'm like, girl, did you just see the smolder he gave you? He's like, you look better than the noble girls crowding around Griffith. I'm like, what? That is a compliment. That is like the best compliment Guts can give you. He literally said, you look beautiful. I'm like, ugh. And then he sits next to her and he's like, hey, why don't you go ask Griffith to go dance with you? And that part kills me, right? That part kills me because Guts doesn't want to acknowledge or realize that he likes I don't think that Guts realizes he likes Casca, right? I don't think he realizes it. He calls her sister Casca, but he literally does, the way that his face betrays him and his actions and words are, I'm like, you like her, but you don't realize you like her. And he's trying to pull a Hawk over here and be like, oh, just go dance with Griffith. Go on, Yona, dance with Sue-on. And I'm like, no. I'm like, I want you two to be together now. You know? I'm like, yeah, he's like, why don't you go ask Griffith to dance? And she's like, oh, that's not going to happen. She's like, no way. Which is an interesting thing for him to ask because he asks her that, but then I'm like, were you guys planning to work together? So why would you go throw Casca in the middle of it? But I think he also asked her knowing what her answer would be because she says, no, it's impossible. I haven't danced since those small village festivals when I was a kid. I'd end up stepping on his feet. And Guts kind of looks down at her, but he looks at her, he just smiles as he looks at her. I'm like, the way that he looks at her, I'm like, I wanted him to dance with her so badly. I'm like, why can't I have Guts and Casca together? Because I have a feeling, we're on episode 17, so we have still, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. We have 8 episodes left. We have lots of time for things to happen. But I have a feeling this is the last good moment between the two of them before the shit hits the fan. Because either one, if Griffith actually did drink the poison, this is my least likely scenario, if he did drink the poison and was about to, and they were all, if he did drink the poison and die, which we know he doesn't, and they were all about to be put on trial or be ousted or be caught up in a battle, they're not going to have any time together. If Guts decided to help Griffith weed out the royalty and then he's going to go on the run, they're not going to see each other again, probably ever. And then if it does cause a big massacre, I have a feeling that not only is the massacre that is about to occur in the next episode going to keep Guts and Casca from seeing one another ever again, but if that doesn't do it, then the Great Eclipse and demons descending probably will. So I just have a feeling this is the last time potentially that they're going to see each other, and it sucks because I'm like, WTF? Like, what? I just want them, because I feel like this is the last time they're going to see each other. And then everything's going to hit the fan and they're not going to have this moment again. And she's like, why did you have a change of heart and decided to come? And she's like, you never come to stuffy places like this. So I do think that the excuse that Guts gives her is valid. He's like, well, ever since I met you 3 years ago, I didn't think anything like this was possible. And what Griffith and what everyone has done within these years, he's like, what he's won so far and what he'll win in the future, I wanted to see it through. I want to be here when he accomplished his dreams. I want to see it to the end. That's why I came. So Guts is like, I want to see him to become king. That's what when 3 years ago, we started this band together, and I promised him I'd help see him become king of this kingdom. If I leave now, like I was originally planning on it, then I couldn't see it through, and that would not be cool. So I'm gonna follow through to the end, and once he becomes king, then I'm gonna leave. What's gonna be interesting is, will Guts leave on his own accord, or will Griffith kick him out, or will something happen? Here's the disconnect, because we have right now at this ball, there could be this massacre, like I think is going to happen, right? And the massacre is going to result in Griffith becoming king. Now, that begs the question. We know that Casca and the others are probably going to be okay if they don't get caught up in the kerfuffle, because they're with Griffith, right? So they're part of his court. They're knights now of the White Hawk. So they might be okay by the end of this. If Guts is the one that causes the massacre, well then there seems to be either one of two options. Guts either has to go on the run and leave knowing that Griffith is now king, or Guts is going to get blamed and we know he's not killed because he's in episode 1, but exiled or whatever. So I don't know. But it could also be that Griffith, you know, he needs a witness to show that he like went after Guts and tried to prevent him and was the cause of Guts running away. So what I mean is, like, if Griffith comes to and there's a battle, Griffith could pose as someone that takes on Guts and fights him. The question is, will Griffith actually like cut off Guts' hand and cause that? Will he oust Guts and exile him and send him away? What's going to happen? I don't know. What's going to happen there with that? I feel like there's a lot of uncertainties. But from what we know in episode 1, Guts does not have a favorable impression of Griffith at all. But in this episode here, they're like best friends. Like massacre, possible shady things. No, we're besties. It's fine. So there's a big question in this next 8 episodes. Like, what is going to happen? Are we going to find out what's tore Griffith and Guts apart? Or is that going to be a manga thing? And I don't want to know the answers. We'll find out when we get to it. But yeah. And so then he's like, I want to see it through to the end. And Casca's like, the end? Does that mean that you're leaving for real? And that's when the king shows up, of course, to give his speech. And Guts is like, you go on ahead. I don't want to listen to his speech. And she's like, well, hurry up and get over here. And he's like, what does he say here? She walks away. And as she's walking away, he says, there's another reason why I'm here at this evening party. But no one knows what will happen here in a few moments. So, not Casca or the other Band of the Hawk guys. So Griffith, I feel like Griffith figured out he was going to get poisoned. Not hard to figure out. But I feel like he figured it out and he got Guts together and was like, I trust you more than anyone. Will you do this for me? And I feel like Griffith did not want Casca and the others to know. 1, because he didn't want them to be liable. 2, he didn't want them to be able to confess and betray him. And 3, he didn't want them involved because that would ruin their whole chances of being knights or whatever. So he says, not Casca or the other guys can know about this. It's a little too much for them, isn't it, Griffith? Guts is so, like, he comes across so intelligent in this episode and so mature in this episode. And he was, like, putting the moves on Casca. And I'm like, because he knows he's probably never going to see her again. I was like, ah. And then he's like, they just wouldn't be able to handle it, but I can. Like, the tension this episode builds up is insane. And so the king talks about the good news that they sent an armistice treaty. Everything's going to be great. We've lost many in this war, but we're going to go towards peace. It's fine. We have to rebuild our kingdom. And meanwhile, Charlotte is looking for Griffith everywhere. We've been exhausted due to the war effort, and she notices Griffith. And he's looking up, smiling at her. So I don't know. We've got to return this land to prosperity. And she waves at him. As you all know, it's due to Count Griffith. And so for their service, he's like, we would not have been able to do it without it. So we're going to make them knights. There's going to be a knighting ceremony the day after tomorrow. Just in time to have a funeral and a knighting all in the same day. And they're going to be nobility within the Midlands. And they're also surprised by it, but Griffith is like, all right, this will secure all of them. And everyone, here's the thing, the nobility that are there at the party, with the exception of the court, the nobility that are there are all for it. They're like, oh, yes, oh, Griffith, knight, count, yes. His friends, knights, of course, we love Rickert, yes. They're all for it. So there can't be a big coup d'etat afterwards because they're like, oh, no, we support Griffith and his men. They led us to this peace, right? And they're all so surprised. Like, Corcus is like, I don't believe this. Like, what's great is that we don't get Griffith's reaction in that shot. We see Corcus and Pippin and Judo are kind of like, this is really sudden and a lot. And Rickert's just kind of like, oh my gosh, really? And Corcus is like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. But we don't get Griffith's reaction until we go straight to him. And he looks just as stone cold neutral as possible. It is terrifying how neutral he is. Until he looks to the window. There's Guts standing there with his damn hands in his pocket and gives him like the biggest smile. What the fudge? The biggest shit-eating grin. What? And he gives him that smile like, hey buddy, old pal, I'm about to do it. And Griffith smiles right back. What? The two of them smile at each other like it's the best day of their lives. Like they are going to go off into the sunset together, making out all the way. And, what? Like when Guts was sent to go kill Adonis and Julius, there were not these smiles. There was not this fanfare, but it is there now, and I am flabbergasted. I am gagged. I am speechless with anticipation. The fudge. And then Casca's trying to get to Griffith. And so the guys are like, utter nonsense. They're like, well, this is unexpected. And Charlotte's like, this is wonderful. And the queen's like, you're going to meet your end shortly. And revel in your elusive glory while you still can. Oh my God. I'm just gobsmacked. Gobsmacked. It's about time, Mr. Foss. What's wrong with you? And how you look really pale. So they're like, this is unlike you. They're like, it's almost time. So they've all been planning. But yeah, he's like, is it because you're afraid? And he's like, oh no, I'm not afraid of the poison. And they're like, well, pull yourself together. And so I love this shot of Corcus being like, he's got like a green waistband there. I love Griffith. It just kind of looks like, really seriously, for real. And Rickert's like, oh, don't mind him, Mr. Griffith. But interesting. And then Foss, the look on Foss's face is very unassuming. It's hard to read. You don't know if Foss is like reacting to the situation and being like, it's your end. Foss is got the little sweat drops coming down his face. Foss does not act like somebody who is about to gloat in poisoning Griffith. Not at all. He's acting like somebody that changed plans at the last minute to save his own skin and is hoping it all goes off without a hitch. That's what his face looks like. Mm-hmm. That's what it looks like. I wonder, honestly, if when Foss left with the paper, if the woman from the court, if Griffith had the woman from the court give it to Foss and the paper said, come and meet me right now outside of the castle if you want to live, or I'll kill you, or something like that. And he left and met, and Griffith and Guts were there, and they're like, here's what we're going to do, and you're going to help us or you're going to die. I wonder if that was the case, right? Or if it was just Griffith that met him, whatever. So then we have the poison being dropped in the wine and spreading, but we don't get to see whose wine cup it is. We see all the wine going to all the people, but we don't get to see who it is. And all the people delivering the wine all look the freaking same. So you can't tell who's getting what wine, right? And then there's the one guy delivering it to Griffith, And he's the one that believes that it's the poison. Right? But the question is it the poison or not? Because the king raises the glass to toast. And then Casca is running towards everybody's. I like that Rickard gets a little thing of wine. Like, give the kids some wine. Look at him. Like, Pippin and him, like, clink glasses. It's really cute. And then Casca goes over to Griffith. And she's going to call his name. But the thing, she's like, oh, Griffith. And the thing of it is, we don't see him drink the wine. But then it shatters. And he seems to fall. But he falls like, okay, can we talk about how he falls? He just thinks, oh no. I only say that because I knew I had a terrible roommate in college for like a year. She was awful. She was the worst. And she fake fainted all the freaking time. Like, she wanted attention so badly. And she would faint like all the time. Like in the middle of class, she'd be like, oh no. I've seen someone faint for real. You go down like that. You turn white as a sheet and you just drop like a stone to the ground. There is nothing graceful or elegant about when you really faint. You are just done. I've seen someone actually faint before. It's not pretty. She'd be like, oh, and perfectly faint, like cradle her head as she fell. I'm just saying, Griffith's fainting skills are impressive. And he just happens to fall, you know, right there, all perfectly. And then Casca's like, what is happening? And then screams for him. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. Ah! So yeah, I think as I've talked for an hour about this episode, because it was so freaking good, I think that Griffith and Guts are about to plan a massacre. It's about to go down, right? I think a massacre is about to happen. Them smiling at each other was the most insane thing I've ever seen in this show. I'm still gobsmacked about it. But yeah, stuff's about to go down. And I think they know it. But they don't want to get everybody else involved because of what could possibly happen. I'm not going to be able to wait to watch the next episode. I'm going to wait a couple days. Be nice about it. But I can't wait very much longer. Nope. So I have so many, this episode was so good in so many ways. And it was just checking off all the boxes. But I'm curious to know your thoughts down below. Please, no spoilers, hints, or clues, especially about the manga. But, oh my God, I can't wait for episode 18. I am so excited to see what's gonna go down. So, in the meantime, I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and yeah, I'll be back very soon with more Berserk.